Our Tachyon Pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Welcome to the Omega Directive, Episode 2. I am Alec Peters.
And I am Jay. And we are going to be talking about Star Trek and Star Wars. The two daddies of sci-fi, actually.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I would think so. And there's big news. I mean, there's big news, and it's ironic that it's kind of big news about the person at the top in both franchises. So let's start with Star Trek, because I saw your video. Everyone should go and make sure they're subscribed to your channel. Links are down below in the description. Both Side Trek and Tachyon Pulse podcasts are yours. So tell us, Jay, what you're hearing through the grapevine about what's going on with Kurtzman and Star Trek.
Well, I am hearing through a couple of independent sources, actually, that Skydance are not pleased, to say the least. I've heard a couple of different stories, but I think they're a bit of Chinese whispers and things, because I've heard a few. I heard one story about there's one of the guys at Skydance was reading through a load of like comments and stuff about Secret Section 31, and was so annoyed he ended up flipping over a desk. I doubt that's true.
That sounds a little extreme.
But
it would be fun.
The general consensus is I'm not happy, and that I will censor myself. But the general consensus was that one person I spoke to knows somebody over that has spoken to somebody else at Skydance, so it is like third hand. So I appreciate also there's Chinese whispers, but apparently the general consensus was Alex Kurtzman getting a new contract in the summer of 26, and the quote was, "No effing chance."
Wow.
Coming straight out of Skydance. So look, this might just be a reaction to what has not been a very popular project, and a project that was rushed. And I think people, I think Secret Hideout need to admit that, okay, we were rushed, we did the best we could in a very short time frame. But again, what I'm hearing is that a couple of people over at Skydance are basically saying if they couldn't do it properly, they shouldn't have done it. Right. And they had the opportunity not to do it. They offered Michelle Yeoh. They said, "Look, we'll let you out the contracts. No bother. You know, you're too busy." Michelle went, "No, I'd love to do it, but I've got this window we can do it of a few months." And they just went, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it then." And the arrogance of Alex Kurtzman that he actually thought he could get away with it, that he could do it, is just mind-boggling. But it's not a Star Trek movie. It's a Star Trek double episode. I
am. Listen, because I've given Kurtzman a lot of rope, and when I've had issues, as I've had issues with Discovery all along, I didn't go ballistic. I didn't say he raped my childhood. I just said here are the problems that I perceived with Discovery, which frankly, most of which they kind of changed with Star Trek Strange New World. So I was happy. I think most of us are happy with Lower Decks and Prodigy. There was some good. Season 3 of Picard, maybe not seasons 1 and 2, but so they're feeling their way a lot. I'm willing to give it, but I think I just lost my shit over Section 31.
Yeah.
I just couldn't.
I felt like they were righting the ship and they were sort of learning their lessons and moving in the right direction. But then season 2 of Strange New Worlds wasn't great.
It wasn't great, and the whole Gorn thing.
A couple of good episodes, a couple of bad episodes. It's like. The crossover with the Lower Decks was one of my favorite Star Trek episodes in years.
Love it.
But then they do 2 or 3. The first episode of the season was awful. The musical was awful, and the finale of the season was awful. It's just like, but I love Lower Decks. I adore Lower Decks, and I cannot wait. Apparently, the rumors are I'm hearing that they are doing a Lower Decks animated movie, and it's already been greenlit. So we'll get something announced at some point.
Well, and also Lower Decks, Prodigy, and even Strange New Worlds to an extent, or season 3 of Picard. Not really. Kurtzman's really not running the show there, right? I mean, he's playing big shot executive producer, czar of Star Trek, but he ain't running the show, and that's why I think why those projects are good. And and I'll just get back to why the beauty of Marvel Studios is Kevin Feige is a comic book geek who came up through the ranks on all those bad Marvel movies through the 90s and early aughts, right? And cut his teeth and learned about it on Daredevil and Punisher and he learned, but he's a comic geek at the core. How can we put someone in charge of Star Trek who doesn't love Star Trek?
Yeah, no, Star Trek isn't a passion for Alex Kurtzman. It's a vehicle. It's an
occupation.
Well, he's J.J. Abrams' protege, basically.
Right.
He was involved in Fringe and stuff like that. And then he wrote a couple of the J.J. Abrams movies. And then so he just latched onto it, somehow got Paramount to agree this ridiculous deal. And he's ran with it since. But he's not. Obviously, by now, everyone's seen a million reviews of Star Trek Section 31, so I don't think we need to go through it step by step like we have done. I've done videos on it already, and so has everyone else. But there are fundamental problems with Section 31 that any Star Trek fan would have seen through immediately. So you've got the characters with the black and white either side. They're supposed to be extinct. And even though you could say, well, maybe there was a colony, or maybe there was someone, maybe a few of them survived. The point of the episode was that they destroyed themselves. That was the point of the episode. So by saying some of them survived, craps on the point of the original series episode. There's no Star Trek in Section 31 at all.
It was basically it was basically Star Trek Renegades, but like a bad version of it.
Yeah, but they had loads of opportunities to bring in a bit of Star Trek, and they just didn't bother. So you've got we saw a Section 31 vessel that looks like no ship we've ever seen before. Why didn't it look like something that you'd recognize as the Federation? We saw two mirror universe vessels. One right at the start, when Michelle Yeoh's Giorgio character is becoming the Empress sort of thing, and one a bit later. And again, neither of them look like Starfleet, but they should. Because every time we've seen the mirror universe before, they look like Federation starship. They're supposed to be a mirror in the universe. But they just didn't. The only thing they did was they put the sound effects of an original series tricorder on an iPhone tricorder. So they beep, 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 but they used the original series. Why did they do that? It's idiotic. So there is no way a Star Trek fan would have watched this and gone, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because they've put Easter eggs in, but they've done it so stupidly, it's just going to annoy fans. At least J.J. Abrams had the balls to say, well, this is a different timeline. So when we crap on canon, it's okay because it's not the same thing.
And we as fans were like, okay with that.
Yeah, I wasn't. But I was a bit, that's lazy. But I was always on board of, why are you doing a prequel anyway? Just don't do it. Why couldn't they do... I had this argument with Enterprise. Why isn't that just another ship? Why has it got to be the Enterprise? Why couldn't it be the USS anything? Right? And one of the early vessels. I'd have called it, what was Christopher Columbus's ship name? I can't remember. But doing something like that. Or call it the Mayflower. You can't really call it Mayflower. It's a crap name for a spaceship. But you know what I mean? Do it something like that. Use something. Don't call it the Enterprise because that's just going to annoy people. And then when they want to do a movie, Strange New Worlds, don't do a prequel because you're going to step on canon. You could do a ship from that time. Just don't call it the Enterprise. You can have all the same actors, just as different characters. Don't make one of them Pike. Don't make one of them Spock, and then give him a bloody sister that he's no one's. Sorry, I'm ranting now. Give him a sister no one's talked about. Just don't do it. Just do a Star Trek series in that time frame if you really, really must. Just don't call it the Enterprise. Trekkies won't care.
Yeah. No, I listen. I agree with you. They have to understand that there's a beauty of Star Wars, for instance, is all the creators adhere to that universe. No one's trying to recreate Star Wars. No one's trying to go back. I mean, even if they said, let's remake Star Wars, A New Hope. They would do it looking like Star Wars. They wouldn't try and change everything, because they now have this in beautiful canvas that goes from the old Republic all the way forward, where we know what everything looks like, and there's just not a lot of change, and there's a basic aesthetic, and everyone was willing to work within that. But it seems like within Star Trek, all these Kurtzman, all his cohorts just want to change everything. They want everything to be different and brighter and more colorful and more obnoxious, and I want to put my stamp on what Star Trek needs to be. How about Star Trek is what it is? How about you play within that, not give us your interpretation of the latest of Star Trek 2025. We don't give a shit about Star Trek 2025. We want Prime Universe Star Trek.
Well, and they're very open about it. They're very open about this business model, which I've moaned about a lot, to say that, well, we're going to do a different Star Trek for different demographics, and if you don't like one Star Trek, that's fine, because we've got another Star Trek for you. And I'm like, no, that's idiotic. Just make Star Trek. You can make it with a slightly different style. You can do it differently, but we don't need a Star Trek sitcom. We don't need a Star Trek for teenagers. You don't need that. Just make Star Trek. And the next generation, I was a fan at 15, and my dad was a fan, and my granddad was a fan, because it was good.
Yeah.
Don't make a different show for different demographics. Just make a good show. It's actually not that difficult when you've already got something like Star Trek. All the heavy lifting of actually thinking up a preposition for the show and all that sort of thing's already been done for you, because Gene Roddenberry did it in 1969. It's not that difficult. And actually, as fans, okay, maybe make it a bit formulaic, but there are certain things we want. We like the new starships. We like, adventures and things. I think doing a prequel is always dangerous, because you've got the problems that you kind of know what's going to happen, and because we've seen what happens later, sort of thing, and you're in danger of stepping on canon. Strange New Worlds is doing it now. Pike and Kirk are not supposed to know each other, but Kirk's there every 5 minutes. The Gorn end up joining the Federation, but they've made them terrifying. It's just all these changes they keep making. It's unnecessary. But this movie, they have openly said, we did not make it for Star Trek fans. We've made it to try to attract new fans. That idea from the basis is idiotic, because what did they think was going to happen? Did they think all of us Trekkies were just going to forget it was on and not watch it? Or then when we watch it, think, oh, actually, no, I love it. It's great. It's not made for me, though clearly it's got no Star Trek in it at all. And if you watched it with the volume off, you wouldn't know it was. You'd think it was just a Michelle Yeoh sci-fi movie.
Right.
You wouldn't know it was a Star Trek film.
That's true.
And they genuinely think we weren't going to kick off. And anybody that's not a Star Trek fan is not going to see all the reviews and go, Star Trek? I might give that a go. They're going to go, Star Trek? That looks shit.
Yeah.
And it's just, so the idea in the first place was moronic. And Straczynski, I've forgotten his first name.
Michael Straczynski.
Yeah, he played Zeph. So he's done a couple of interviews, and the one interview was with Sean Ferrick on Trek Culture, and it's brilliant interviews. He's a proper Trekkie. I got respect. I already liked him as an actor. I've seen him in things.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about J. Michael Straczynski, who created Babylon 5. No. Oh, you're talking about the actor who played the cyborg character.
Yeah. It is something like James Straczynski.
That's it.
Bill Straczynski. Anyway, we'll sort that out in the edit. But the guy that played Zeph is a proper Trekkie. He was on this show with Sean Ferrick and did an interview. And he was basically saying that when he first got the
Robert Kaczynski. Let's start.
Robert Kaczynski. I knew it was like a normal name. Robert Kaczynski. Rob Kaczynski. So when he was talking about, he said, I don't want to do a Section 31 movie. I don't want to do this because I think a prequel sort of thing. And no one's going to want to watch it. And I don't like the idea. And then he sat down with Alex Kurtzman, and Alex Kurtzman basically said Star Trek is dying. the original fans and everything are all dying out. I'm 47. I've got a few years left in me, but whatever. Even original Star Trek fans are only in maybe their 70s, 60s or 70s, because it was 69. So when's that? 60. It's when I just had a 60th.
Listen, I'm 64 years old. I was born in 1960. I watched the original series when it was first on TV. I was 6 years old when it premiered.
And Alec, you might have a few more years left in you yet before you croak.
Hope so.
And we're the generation that have actually got money. How many 18-year-olds can spend 300 quid on a pig and Lego model? If they can, they shouldn't. But so, I spend my money on this sort of crap. I pay for the Paramount Plus subscription. So why they did it in the first place was more like, but Alex was, it's dying, so we have to do something to attract new people. That's fine. But TNG did that, but they just made a Star Trek show and they attracted a whole new generation of Star Trek fans. So to say this, it almost feels like an excuse to me. It's like, oh, this is terrible. Let's just not say it was made for Star Trek fans. And that way, maybe the Star Trek fans won't actually just give up on Star Trek completely. Because it's not just bad, it's idiotic.
Well, here's my take on this. Again, this whole idea of doing prequels and going back in time and telling the stories doesn't make sense when what they should have done is started after Voyager. New ship, new, you want to make ships in the Gamma Quadrant or something, whatever. There's this whole universe to tell stories in, and the background, we have the background.
Yeah.
Prime Star Trek. You like it? Great.
Yeah.
But the thought that, Star Trek is dying. Star Trek is dying because Alex Kurtzman killed it. Not because the fan base is shrinking. It's amazing even when Star Trek 2009 came out. I'll never forget that I met someone who, at Dragon Con, she was cosplaying a Romulan commander. And I said, wow, and she was young. I said, that's a great costume. You're a Star Trek fan? And she goes, yeah, well, I saw the Star Trek movie and I liked it so much. I went back and watched TOS and became a fan. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Now, if there are fans for science fiction, and I don't care, you've got For All Mankind, you've got Foundation, you have all the shows that are science fiction shows, space-based science fiction shows that have come out. If someone's greenlighting them, then you have an audience. You have a science fiction audience. And Star Trek is so well established that if you came out with a good Star Trek series, you would bring more people in. You'd bring all the young people who are into science fiction now, who maybe weren't Star Trek fans. So this whole demographic thing is bullshit because all you have to do is produce good Star Trek. Good storytelling, good characters. You don't need all the stupid, expensive, flashy bridge sets and keep it simple, guys. Just keep it simple and you will have more and more fans. More fans will come to you because they'll hear, hey, the new Star Trek, whatchamacallit, is a really good show. Oh, let's go check it out.
Well, look at, Star Trek, again, another problem with this idea, and again, why it's moronic, is that what is the most popular thing from a ratings point of view that Star Trek under Kurtzman have done? It's Picard season 3. It's pretty much the only Star Trek thing that's even appeared on the Nielsen rating, but it actually went to number 1. It is the one thing that's been, and what is that? It's a fucking TNG movie, basically. It's a TNG series.
Yeah.
So for them why didn't they look at that and go, actually, you know what? I don't think these Star Trek fans are all dying. There seems to be still an appetite for it. If you do a show that's good and that gets people talking, it will bring in other fans. It just will. But also, the TNG fans are still alive and kicking and vast in their numbers. And by doing this, all you're doing is pissing us off.
Oh, yeah.
Just don't do that.
No. This is what CBS has been. Why CBS has such low regard for fans in all regards, whether it's the way they handle the monumental disaster that them handling the license for the conventions has been, which with Reed Expo, and who was a good company, but just it was pulling that license from creation and giving it to someone who knows nothing about Star Trek was a disaster. But that's because they they absolutely don't care about what the fans want. That's not what the fans wanted, or suing fan films if you want, whatever. There is such low regard for the fans from at CBS, whether it's John Van Sitters or Mallory Levitt in the legal division or where. They just don't care about us, the people that have been with Star Trek for 50 years. They don't care about what we wanted, what we want. And they put us in a box and say, well, you're just old Star Trek fans and we need to expand. Yeah, you've been expanding all the time by people discovering what Star Trek is, by discovering good Star Trek. If you put out good shows, you get more people. That's the purpose of Prodigy, right? Let's cultivate the younger audience on Nickelodeon. Great, good, go out and do it.
Star Wars, that sort of thing. It's still Star Wars though, but it is aimed at a younger demographic. But it's still
and there's consistency. We look at. To your point before, you made this point before, and I agree with it wholeheartedly in Star Wars. Star Wars in the same universe, without changing anything, did Clone Wars, which appeals to everyone, right? Yep. From kids to adults. I'm watching Clone Wars, right? Yeah. Rebels, right? Yeah. Bad Batch. Oh my God, I almost cried in the last episode of Bad Batch. I mean, it's so good. It is so good. Right, so they're doing these other shows that are animated, but they respect their audience, and it all lives in the same universe, and all the stories tie in. I mean, you want to understand Ahsoka? Go back and watch your Rebels right? You have to do that. So Star Wars, I think, respects their fans, something that CBS and Paramount don't, especially when CBS and Paramount license out their IP to a third party like Kurtzman, who has no respect for the fans.
No, I will. The only point I'll make is Mike McMahon is the exception. McMahon doing Lower Decks, 100%. If they wanted to, if Alex Kurtzman said, right, I'm done, I'm stepping aside, and this might be the only way Secret Hideout gets a new contract. I've been told this more than once, that it's Kurtzman that they want out. If Mike McMahon stepped up and said, and was the new head of Secret Hideout, the new head of Star Trek, I don't think anyone, or if they somehow managed to drag Terry Matalas back.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's going to happen now. He's got too many deals with Disney now. But if they were able to do that, I don't think fans would mind, because they're people that actually do respect and understand what Star Trek is.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're not going to give the same they're not going to give that same bullshit contract they gave Secret Hideout and Kurtzman before.
No, they won't get it.
They're going to bring it in-house. It's going to, so hire Mike McMahon to be your Kevin Feige of Star Trek. I'm totally down with that.
Yeah. We have to be honest and say that I mean, Secret Hideout could get another contract. I mean, but it would have to be. I've always said the problem Skydance have got is they're only going to have about a year to do something. So what they may do is just go, let's just give them a short-term contract. At least that way we can keep producing Star Trek. We can keep doing something. Let's kick the problem down the road a little bit. So they could still get another contract. I don't think it'll be as free reigning or as I mean, but basically Skydance and Secret Hideout got whatever they wanted when they did this. I don't think it'll be as good a contract for Secret Hideout. I think Skydance will want to wrestle some creative control back and that sort of thing. But I as it stands now, Skydance is saying not a bloody chance.
Well,
that could change when their business heads kick in later down the road, though. So we've got to be fair. They could decide for business reasons they've got no choice, but I don't think it's likely.
Yeah. So this is, we're going to talk about Star Wars too, because it's so crazy.
the franchises mirror each other in lots of ways.
Right. It's so crazy how the same thing is happening in Star Wars right now.
Yeah.
And you did a video on it. So why don't you talk a little bit about Kathleen Kennedy and what's going on in the Star Wars side of thing? Because I'm just blown away by how similar. It's like everyone better start taking lessons in how to treat a franchise. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, for me, I talked about in the video that I dropped a couple of days ago, and I was basically saying that, look, I'm not a massive Star Wars fan. I never have been. I love sci-fi. I was always a Trekkie. That was always my joy, sort of thing. But I like Star Wars. I watch Star Wars. I've got a massive Millennium Falcon on the wall over there, and I'm building a Millennium Falcon Lego model. I do like Star Wars, but I'm a Trekkie. But when I talk to Star Wars fans, the real, like insane, hardcore Star Wars fans, they talk about Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm just like, that's how I feel about Kurtzman, because the things they moan about is she's abused canon. She's created projects that just aren't good enough. At times, the agenda has overtaken the story, and there's DEI nonsense and all this other stuff that people are sort of woke, basically, and they just feel like she doesn't actually respect what Star Wars is. I think Star Wars fans as well have the same argument. They'll say, look, some stuff has been good. We liked Andor. We liked Rogue One. Skeleton Crew was actually quite good.
Yeah, and I haven't finished it yet, but it is surprising.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, they didn't spend ridiculous money on it. Andor has cost a crap load of money. Both seasons, like over $600 million for 2 seasons. It's insane. But and that's again down to Kathleen Kennedy. So what I'm hearing, the rumors that are going around at the moment are basically there's the rumor that Kathleen Kennedy she's not getting a new contract. I'm actually told that is probably true. That they haven't actually negotiated a new contract, and that she's going to stay within Disney, but she won't be the head of Lucas anymore. So she'll have a new role within things. That's what I'm being told is going to happen. I'm being told that the rumors that basically she's not getting a contract because she was too demanding in her contract negotiations. She wanted executive producer roles. She wanted more creative control of Star Wars. I'm being told that's not true. This was a mutual decision. I'm being told about a year ago that it was basically decided that she wouldn't continue as president of Lucas. And it was around the time of Ashoka coming out that they sort of went, we need to go a different way. And the last Jedi movie, what was it? Was it The Last Jedi? That came out. So it was around then they thought, like, okay. I'm being told they don't necessarily blame Kathleen Kennedy for a lot of the mistakes that have happened. And that some of it was political because Disney had a philosophy that they've now changed their minds about, where they were trying to be very, sort of like right wing and things, and but they're now trying to move away from that. So they don't necessarily blame her for a lot of it, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with the boss. So the other rumor that keeps going round and round is that George Lucas is going to be coming back and he will be president of Lucasfilm. That is not true.
Yeah, that's just not. How old is he now?
Well, he's very happy in his retirement, I was told. And so if you think, I think that's just people getting their overexcitement. Sometimes you get this a lot, that particularly on YouTube, people do videos about things they want to be true rather than that are true. Yeah. So I've heard this rumor about blah blah blah, which is why it frustrates me. I get called a liar occasionally, and oh, you're just making this shit up. And I'm just like, no, if I was lying, all my videos would be far more positive, because I would just talk about things that I want to be true rather than not. I've done videos about how Alex Kurtzman is not getting fired. I've done videos about how Kathleen Kennedy is not getting fired, and they're not popular. People go, oh, no, she is. I've seen it on this other channel, and she's definitely getting fired. And she's not. And she's not getting fired this time. She just isn't going to get a new contract. But I'm told it's not necessarily because of her. It's because they want to take Star Wars in a slightly different direction, and they just feel Kathleen Kennedy maybe is taking a lot of the flack for it. Maybe she should move.
And haven't they given Dave Filoni all the creative control over Star Wars? I mean, haven't they already taken that away from Kathleen Kennedy? Because
my question is that it'll be Filoni or someone like that will step up to be president.
yeah, I mean,
I've been told it's somebody internal that we know, but I wasn't given a name. So on my first thought was Filoni. So
yeah, because they've given him so much more control over the projects, which is right. I mean, because again, Star Wars guy, proven commodity, right? He's responsible for Rebels, and he's been there since wasn't he there in the Clone Wars days? Was it
Probably, I don't know, to be honest.
So he's
for me, himself. I would be promoting Filoni, and I'd be trying to get Favreau as like creative control.
Yeah,
like how DC have got James Gunn and the other guy, that's sort of the business guy.
Right.
You want a business guy and you want a creative guy.
Yeah. No, I listen. Absolutely agree. And
girl, could be a girl. You can have a creative girl, but it's not Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, I agree.
There's too much negativity in it aimed at her, and again, that's the same for Star Trek, isn't it? There's so much anger, and it's aimed at Alex Kurtzman.
Yeah.
And whether it's fair or not, all I would say is that the stuff that creatively Alex Kurtzman seems to have been involved in is the stuff that I really don't like.
Yeah.
The stuff he's not been so involved in is the stuff I do like.
Right. Yes.
But he could be a manager. He could just go, right, I'm not going to have any creative control. And to be warned, they're doing 2 series of Starfleet Academy, and he is a co-showrunner. So he is involved creatively with Academy. Star Trek 90210, as we like to call it over on Sidetrack. It's going to be... I don't like to say that shows are going to be bad before they come out, because I think it's lazy, and you should give a show a chance, shouldn't you? But it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad.
God. Well, let me tell you also, I also feel that Discovery never got better. It never, you know, if you look at Star Trek The Next Generation, as season 1 or 2 are god awful, and then season 3, you're like, okay, there's some good stuff here.
As soon as Tashiar died, and Geordie somehow got an engineering degree, it got way better.
Yeah. And it kept improving. And it kept improving. And and seasons 6 and 7 are pretty damn good. But nothing has gotten better with Kurtzman. I mean, we have, maybe you could say Picard, all right, but Picard didn't get better because of learning from Alex Kurtzman. It got better because they brought Terry Matalas in to give us all our nostalgia memes.
I think John Frakes has got to take a lot of credit for that as well, though.
Yes,
he's involved in things.
Absolutely,
But you've got to give John Frakes a lot of credit for Strange New Worlds, to be fair, as well, because he's basically running that show now.
Oh, is he? Okay.
When it's good, he directs a lot of the episodes, doesn't he? But he's very heavily involved in the creative side of Strange New Worlds now, and that's
interesting.
Again.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so anyway, I'm just I'm looking forward to both Kathleen Kennedy and Alex Kurtzman being gone and them rebooting. Oh, I was going to mention that the perfect example of how Discovery never got better is what was it? Is season 4 or season 5? They got those new uniforms with that stripe, and I just thought they were the worst uniforms I've ever seen in Star Trek. For so many reasons.
Heavy or something. They look weird.
First of all,
one looks really frumpy in them.
Right? It's like, wait a second. You're telling me you're 1,000 years after the last Star Trek in the future, and you guys haven't learned how to make clothing that looks comfortable? I mean, in Star Trek, in the original series, they were basically wearing space pajamas. And because they're in climate-controlled ships, and they don't need to, and now you're going to wear those stupid costumes. I mean, it's just like, who the hell is hiring the costume designer and giving him that person that kind of feedback? That's what, if the costume designer came to me and showed me those uniforms, I say, okay, you don't understand something. Let's talk about the basics here. We're in space 1,000 years after this look, and point to the costumes in Voyager and say 1,000 years after that. And you're going to tell me that's what you come up with? Is these stupid wool? Stupid with the.
Now, to be fair, for me, the best uniforms they ever had were Enterprise, because I always thought they were the ones that actually, because they looked kind of like military uniforms and they kind of looked functional.
Right.
And
they harken back to the space shuttle program close enough,
if you didn't have a six-pack, you could get away with it and stuff, which you couldn't with the TNG uniforms. You know what I mean? So I always like those. I always thought if they should have done something more like the jumpsuits or something. But
yeah,
D Space Nine, I really like D Space Nine uniforms as well, to be fair. But yeah, they didn't. They just went with these weird designs. But for me, Discovery started really, really badly, and it was less bad as it went. The third season was pretty bad. The fourth season I couldn't watch. But the fifth season was actually okay until the end. The last two episodes we just went off a cliff. But before that, I was actually like, I'm quite enjoying this. That again was why I keep saying that I felt Star Trek was going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But then they did Section 31.
Yeah.
And you just got to go, why? What were they bloody thinking? And again, I always think Star Wars was going in the right direction as well. Okay, the Book of Boba Fett wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. It was just a bit weird that the best two episodes were the ones that he wasn't in.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There was the Mandalorian. But the third season of Mandalorian wasn't good. It was really weak. It had some really random bits in it.
Yeah, And I can
Acolyte was painful.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It just feels like they were going in the, and Star Trek again, they were going in the right direction, and then they just took a massive turd on the fans. And for Star Wars, it was Acolyte, and for Star Trek, it's Section 31.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, that's how the franchises are just are both struggling. And listen, let's face it, I think these corporations, Skydance or Disney, are listening to the fans. And interestingly, I don't think they're listening to to all the YouTubers. I mean, this whole YouTube industrial complex of hatred, whether it's whoever, whether it's the Neurotic or the Midnight's Edge or the Doomcock, whatever, who are just relentlessly negative. Okay, that doesn't help. That doesn't.
Alec, it gets clicks, mate.
Yeah, they're all trying to get clicks. I think the Skydances and Disney's of the world are listening to the fans, and they're hearing what the fans are saying about these projects and reacting accordingly, which is what they need to do.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to the person I've spoken to you about, and she was sort of telling me when they do the analytics on these things, they understand that on social media in particular, people don't comment unless they're either really angry about something or they're really, really excited about something. If they watch a show, they just go, that was good, I enjoyed that. They don't immediately grab their phones and go, I must tweet about it immediately. But if something comes up they don't like, they will.
Yes.
But they've done studies on it over the years, and they understand that there is actually like a ratio to it. So if you get like 500 really negative comments, but only 100 positive comments, that's not necessarily, and I'm picking those numbers off the top of my head, obviously, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they know they understand there's a ratio negative to positive that's normal. And if you get so many complaints, again, they don't panic as long as it's at this ratio sort of thing, because you're always going to annoy or somebody's going to dislike something. But that's a relatively new phenomenon because it didn't happen before. If people didn't like something, the ratings fell through the floor and it got cancelled. That doesn't really happen now. People, they still get reasonable minutes on these things. Paramount are probably quite happy with Section 31 because for whatever reason it was number one for the first week or so on Paramount Plus. It's now about number 6, but it's got okay numbers for something that is basically a double episode and only cost $25 million to make.
Is that all? It was only $25 million.
Apparently, yeah, it's about and $3 to $5 million of that went to Michelle Yeoh.
Wow,
so
wow, that's crazy. That it was
basically got Discovery double episode budget. That's basically what it got. So yeah, and that was including they had to reshoot a load of stuff.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but their filming schedule was ridiculous. They only filmed about 3 months. It was insane. Michelle Yeoh basically said, "I've got this window, boom, here,
Right.
and it's got to be done here, and it's in 6 months." And I went, "Okay, let's get it done."
Wow.
It was
Well, that's wild.
it was barely 18 months ago this was announced, that they were doing the movie instead of this. And, it's just incredible. And that's why it's bad, because they rushed it.
Well, listen, I think we all hope that the future has something positive in store for Star Trek. Star Wars, I have a lot better. I have a lot more confidence that Star Wars is going to right its ship, just by assuming Kathleen Kennedy. From what I've heard, she already lost the creative control, which is really what they need. But and I think Dave Filoni is the person to get it done. I think him and Favreau have done just brilliant work over Star Wars, and they both care about it enormously. And that's what we need with Star Trek. We need someone who cares about Star Trek.
I even would say Akiva Goldsman wouldn't be a terrible person to take over if they brought it back in house somehow. Say if they did the Warner Brothers approach, what they were planning to do, and buy Alex Kurtzman out and bring Secret Hideout internally. Akiva Goldsman he's a manager though. He's a producer. He's got creative, and he's had obviously been involved in Star Trek for a long time. But if you look at his resume, he's been executive producer on loads of things over the years that you will love, that you look at and go, I love that. He's done some crap as well, but every producer has. I wouldn't hate it if Akiva Goldsman came in, and I've seen him in a few interviews. He seems to talk sense as well. He's relatively honest about things. If there's a Dave Filoni version in Star Trek, it might be Akiva Goldsman. But I think the Star Wars thing is different because Disney bought Star Wars, bought Lucasfilm. Oh, that was the one thing as well. I should mention that the big thing with Kennedy, that they're not happy that she's never expanded Lucasfilm beyond Star Wars, and they wanted to. They did Willow, and it was just a bomb hit it.
Yeah.
So that was always one of her things that she was supposed to do, and she's never managed to do, to make it not a one-trick pony sort of thing. But so it is different in that respect, though. That Paramount created Star Trek and they loaned it out to Secret Hideout, and when the contract runs out, they could just take it back. Lucasfilm is a separate entity within Disney. It's something they bought. So there is slightly a difference in that Paramount can absorb Star Trek back in, whereas Star Wars is its own thing and it's its own entity within Lucasfilm, and it's never going to quite. It's like I say, it's not quite the same thing. Or if we're talking about what happens after. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm surprised that the Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm have never done some sort of spin-off series with Indiana Jones. They just keep producing mediocre movies. Where's the young Indiana Jones style movie? Maybe take Indy in his teenage year or in his 20s, right? Or and tell all those stories. I mean, when we meet Indiana Jones, he's what? He's 35, in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So what about his 20s? What happened in his 20s? That must have been awesome. Or you couldn't come up with a TV show for that?
Yeah, we have seen a young Indiana Jones TV series.
Yeah, but that's in his teenage year.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. You see a bit more about when he was during the war and things like that as well.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunity to do stuff like that. To your point, it's not just Star Wars.
Yeah, because that's he was supposed to be the SOE, wasn't he? He was supposed to be in the special operations thing.
Yeah.
And, so basically the predecessor to the CIA.
Yeah.
So that would have been cool to want to do that. Do a war movie, a war series.
Yeah, there's lots of things to do, just kind of like they're doing in Star Wars, and picking out somewhat obscure things I mean, Andor is really an obscure character, you know, and they're taking him and they blew him up, and it's going great. So, well, listen, let's it's time to wrap up. Any parting thoughts before we take off?
I'll just say that I don't like being negative towards Section 31. I really wanted to like it. I really wanted to like it. Yeah. I love Michelle Yeoh. I think she's amazing.
Yeah.
This is one of the most disappointing things, and Star Trek has been disappointing for a while.
Yeah.
This disappointed me more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I did get angry about it. And I don't normally. I normally though, no, it's TV. Calm down. It's not real. It doesn't matter. No one got hurt. But this actually did make me go, what the hell was that? Even though I'd seen an early edit of it, I was still excited to see the film.
Well, listen, I made it through the first half hour. Mark Edward Lewis, our editor on Axanar, made it through the first half hour. We just weren't able to go on. We were just so disappointed. So, but
the first 10 minutes were actually quite good. That was the really crazy bit. I quite like. I want to say they should have done a film about a young Giorgio becoming the Empress. I'd have watched that.
Yeah.
This was awful. It's just really bad. And let's just hope something good comes out of it.
Well, I'll share the early. We've got new edits of new rough edits of the next 2 episodes of Axanar out. So I'll share that with you so you can have a little positivity in your life.
I'll be honest though, so it's up to you.
We're always looking for honesty. We don't want anyone blowing smoke up our butts.
So, Alex, what did you think? Well, I preferred sections that. No, I'm sure. That's not gonna happen.
All right. Well, listen, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Omega Directive. Make sure you check out both my project on Axanar and Jay's projects on his new Tachyon Pulse podcast, and of course, Sidetrack. All the information is down in the show notes down below. And as always, my friends, live long and prosper.
Star Trek was good. Look, remember that.